Hello, welcome to the sideboard here at the Legacy Open in Philadelphia, part of the SCG Tour. I'm Nick Miller alongside Shawn. How are you doing today?
Good, how are you?
Great, you've got a good one. Now you've been playing this deck locally and kind of putting up results in the IQ circuit with a fan favorite, 10 Fins.
Favorite?
Oh yeah.
All right.
People love this deck.
Okay.
It'll be all over Twitter.
I enjoy it.
All right, so you're a Miracles player at heart, but you like to sleeve this up from time to time, and the question I have to ask is, why 10 Fins, and then why this deck over something crazier like Belcher or more kind of systematic like Reanimator?
Okay. Just a 17-part question to start.
You can pull it out in bullet points if you'd like, but
okay.
We'll see how we go.
This deck is a lot of fun. I usually play it for shenanigans, but it's been winning a lot lately, so I've stuck with it. You get to start off a lot of games with a Gitaxian Probe, see what's in their hand. If it's nothing, you get to play a Petal, a Dark Ritual, an Entomb, getting Gristlebrand and a Shallow Grave, put him into play, draw 14 cards, play a Petal, play another Dark Ritual, Entomb Emrakul with the shuffle trigger on the stack, reanimate him and attack for 22. Right. No effort involved, don't care what you're playing.
So that's the short version.
Yes.
You get to do all this crazy shenanigan stuff. You know, what makes the format right now a well-positioned format for this deck? Because, you know, we've seen a lot of these decks that are kind of glass cannon-y, fold to Force of Will or whatnot, but you have a lot of discard and things to fight through that.
This deck is very close to Belcher with how fast it can go, but it does have the discard and the probes and a bunch of cantrips to refuel a little bit better. It can fight through a surprising amount of hate by throwing an Emrakul at them. Like if they have a Caracas, you can make a Gristlebrand and an Emrakul, and they just die to one of them.
Right. So
what was the question? What's the hate?
Yeah, like how do you beat the hate with this deck? I mean,
it can play through usually discard counter spells pretty easily. You hit them with a few discard spells, you try to make a Gristlebrand. If it doesn't work, you just try again in a few turns, play a few cantrips, try to find it.
Okay. So people have called, you know, Belcher the Glass Canyon. We like to kind of call this a shotgun effect. You have one effect, reload, try again,
yep.
And then you see where you go from there.
Yep.
Now on top of the whole Gristlebrand, Emrakul stuff, you also have a Storm Kill.
Yes.
Take us through the iterations of that and how you can try to Storm Kill and when you need to do that.
So after you've made a Gristlebrand and drawn 14 cards, sometimes you can't just also make an Emrakul because you're a bit short. You have the option to make a Children of Korlos, which 1 white, 1/1, sacrifice it, gain life equal to the life you've lost this turn. So you could draw more with Gristlebrand, and maybe you've attacked them already with Gristlebrand. Post-combat, you draw another 7. It's too late to Emrakul them, but you can use Children, draw a bunch more cards, Petal, Dark Ritual, Tendrils you for the rest of your life, which is probably 13 if I just hit you with a Gristlebrand.
Right. So it's a two-pronged approach. You have a bunch of different ways to win. You know, the combo kill with Tendrils allows you to fight through stuff, you know, like Caracas or some sort of ensnaring bridge effect or something like that.
Yep, I can win through a bridge.
All right. Now, that's important to note because a lot of people are going to that type of hate card to fight the Eldrazi deck.
Yep.
Did you consider the Eldrazi effect when you kind of played this deck this weekend?
I think I'm all right with my Serenities in the sideboard to just kill their artifacts, which are great against Death and Taxes and Miracles. Their Chalices and Thorns are about all I care about. I can usually, if I'm on the play, I could just turn 1 them.
Right.
I know Storm decks say that a lot, but this deck is very good at it, whereas Ad Nauseam doesn't do it as often as you like.
Right. This deck has a much higher percentage of doing what it wants to do on the first turn.
Yep.
Now you've done a lot of changes to the sideboard. You know, you used to do a lot of things like Abrupt Decay, kind of have a green Xanded Swarm sort of storm
yep.
style. No longer the case. You've switched to just, you know, white and black and blue cards, but you'll have a 4 of Monastery Mentor.
Yep.
Take us through what this is doing here.
Greg Mitchell was able to talk me into changing the sideboard, though I kept the main deck the same. Some people don't like the Chrome Mox and the Tendrils, would just rather have another Reanimate. But in the sideboard, I wasn't using the green cards too often, and most of them are covered by Serenity and Chain of Vapor. So 4 Monastery Mentors, 3 Dark Confidants, 2 Swords to Plowshares, 2 Chain of Vapor, and against decks that can hit you with discard, graveyard hate, and counter spells, you could just shift gears a little bit to throw them off.
Okay.
Depending on your opponent, sometimes you want to leave the deck as is and not transformational into the creatures. Sometimes you want more of a split, like against Miracles, like you want the Mentors, but you still want to be able to accidentally kill them. And then against other decks, like the Delver decks with Graveyard Hate and Discard, you go deeper and bring in the Dark Confidants too. And usually with that, you do leave a Gristlebrand in, I think. I'm
got
still
your notes,
learning.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
All right. So it's important to note, because with the Mentor in this deck, you also have a couple Sensei's Divining Tops that you can work for as kind of a sort of cantrip in this deck.
They used to be Limdol's Vaults, but they were replaced because they work a little better with Mentor, and I'm still trying to figure out if I like them better than Limdol's Vault, and I think I do. I did in round 3 in game 1. I did not know what my opponent was. I had won the die roll. I started the game off with Flooded Strand, Fetch, Find Tundra, cast Sensei's Divining Top, pass the turn. My opponent played a Plains and a Mother of Runes. I untapped, played Polluted Delta, Fetch, get C, Petal, Entomb, Shallowgrave Gristlebrand, draw 14, Petal, Children, draw 14, Emrakul.
Probably didn't see that one coming.
No, it didn't matter though, he just died.
All right, so take us to the sideboard. You already mentioned Serenities against all the kind of the hateful permanent stuff. And you mentioned Dark Confidant comes in with the Mentor when that's kind of the go-to backup plan.
Yep.
All right, what about the other cards? You have some Swords of Plowshares here, Chain of Vapor, and Pithing Needle.
What Serenity can't hit, Chain of Vapor, Needle are kind of catch-alls for. Serenity can hit a ley line, Chain of Vapor can hit a ley line. I kept the Needles in. Somebody was telling me to cut them, but I wanted to keep them in for Fairy Macabre, which I saw a lot of the Eldrazi decks were playing as their Graveyard Hate through a Thorn.
Sure.
So I figured I would just needle it and ignore it.
That's one way to do it. All right, so you're 4-0.
Yep.
How many turn 1 kills? If this isn't at least 8, I'm very upset.
3 or 4.
All right, I'll settle for 3 or 4.
Mentor's won both games that I played it in. Greg Mitchell tells me that it's the best Monastery Mentor deck in Legacy, which that might be a stretch, but I don't know much about Monastery Mentor decks in Legacy. I do get to play it, cast a therapy from hand, and then flashback a couple of therapies, which leaves me with some tokens, then with nothing. Maybe some Graveyard Hate that I don't care about anymore because I have 7 power of monks in play.
All right, well, the deck looks great. You're off to an awesome start. What would you advise to anyone who's considering picking up a deck like this?
It's kind of like a Belcher or a Storm where you can go fish it a lot, but that'll only get you so far before you have to play games and learn interactions between your deck and your opponent's deck. There's a lot of corner cases that you get worked into where you know exactly what's in your deck. You know the contents of their hand. Maybe they brainstormed. You can make a guess at that. You have to try to figure out what they're going to go for to kind of play to your outs. Sometimes you have all the resources you need, but things just aren't quite right. Like you're a little short on black mana and you had to play too many Dark Rituals to get through your deck. And that's where you just Cabal Therapy yourself for Emrakul and keep drawing cards.
So there's a lot of ins and there's a lot of outs to this deck, but it looks very good. It is very explosive.
Yep.
And for you, it's doing great so far. So Shawn, thanks for joining me here in the sideboard. Stay tuned to StarCityGames.com all weekend long for the action here in Philadelphia.